epigenetic eugenics. It's a way of people to be mind controlled into culling the population themselves without anybody having to do it externally. Yeah, I would say it's even, you know, about diminishing the whole socio-sexual cohesion between the sexes in general. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in the future, is the wedge that's being driven through social engineering in between males and females. And most people are totally unconscious of how this manipulation is being done, and it's actually resulting in declining birth rates in all the civilized countries of the world, basically all the, you know, the Western civilization countries. And, you know, some people would say, oh, that's a good thing because we're the ones who are completely messing up the world. I mean, at the same time, they want a population reduction. They want a eugenics agenda because the more manageable the population is, the easier it is to control. You know, the smaller it is, the easier it's manageable. And they certainly don't want real men rising up in society. They want the emasculated man that will lay down to the state, and then they want the only masculinized men they want in positions of quote-unquote authority within the police forces and the military forces. That's where they want to channel any testosterone or any traditional male you know, roles. They want that channeled into the state. And, you know, they're doing this epigenetically by the female support of the entire system. The targeting of females for mind control, the targeting of females in marketing. You know, I mean, the latest, you know, not to jump ahead of myself, but, you know, the latest figures are that almost 85% of the entire U.S. economy is basically pushed forward by females in our culture. They're the ones who are actually doing the buying because all of the mass marketing is largely geared toward them. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it or believe me or even think it's my opinion. Just go out into the street and look at what the marketing targets. It clearly targets the female mind. And it's an unpopular thing to say and get into. And when I start talking about neo-feminism as compared and contrasted with what I would term classical feminism, they're 100% complete opposites of each other, and neo-feminism is a eugenics agenda without any question in my mind. And I could also tell you that it comes out of Satanism, and it's things I'm going to be talking about. Population reduction. They don't understand that the neo-feminist agenda is actually a war not only on men but certainly a war on women as well. When I do get into this, I want to be very, very clear that I am not doing this to try to further divide or further play into the dialectic. I am trying to do this to bring attention and heal the divide that has so obviously been manifested in our society throughout the last, you know, I would say at least 30 to 40 years, and rapidly growing worse and worse and worse even as we speak. So that's regarding your question of what you can personally do. When talking about solutions, a lot of people don't ever formulate some sort of a strategy for dealing with the quote-unquote unconscious. You know, they're content in many ways to let them live in that unconsciousness. And, you know, let me just say this. I think a big part of the solution is to educate children whose minds aren't so totally taken and so totally calcified and like as if held in a concrete block. They're a little bit more malleable. And, you know, there's this, you know, there's a concept in general that it's easier to educate a child than... We were talking, giving my take on, you know, what we can do to help kind of decondition and deprogram some of these people who have basically been raised their entire lives in the dynamic of believing that order following is some kind of a virtue and that we need this dynamic in our lives to somehow maintain order in society. It's something I'm going to probably get into in a big way in future shows, and it's something that I want to formulate ideas on a little bit more in a you know, kind of formal manner to try to put out a strategy out there for people, because I think we have to organize truth seekers and truth speakers among us and identify those truth seekers and speakers in our local communities and then work together, literally like tactical teams. I mean, literally like a tactical team. I'm going to, in the future, lay out this strategy, and I'll tell you what I'm going to call it. I call this maven targeting. Okay? It's a new concept. I'm going to coin a few new things in the future regarding my work and, you know, certain strategies that I want to put out there for people. A maven, M-A-V-E-N, is a person within any type of a social structure that is perceived to be the go-to person, the expert on a particular topic, or the person that people listen to for advice and direction. A maven does not have to be, per se, a knowledgeable individual. They only have to be perceived as a knowledgeable individual. So I'll just give an example here, and I like to give personal examples. I am not a maven, okay? People would say, oh, yes, you are, yes, you are. People come to you for this, that, and the other thing. Want advice on this, want knowledge on this, want, to know what resources to go to, okay? What I'm talking about is in my interpersonal social circles, in my everyday life, I am not a maven, okay? In my family, there is a maven. There's probably a couple. I'm certainly not it. I'm not that dynamic. I'm not that person. I'm not that individual. In my family, my mother is the maven of the family. Therefore, if I wanted to try to change the dynamic of the family thoughts, the direction, the advice that they take, who they listen to, the person that would need to be worked on the heaviest would be my own mother, because she's seen as the, quote, matriarch of the family, if you will, okay? So this is why in giving information to anybody else in my family, I have focused on that person the most. Now, I'm not in that person's physical presence very much, so it really doesn't make a difference, what I would, speak, because I don't really spend a lot of time on the phone, and since we're not really in each other's physical presence or company, I don't really engage in that. When I was in her presence a lot earlier on years ago, I would heavily try to give this information, even if it wasn't well received or the person said, I really don't care or I don't want it. I would speak it anyway in their presence and do nothing else. This is the kind of result. People will say, well, this is almost like just being an annoying person to somebody else. It's like saying you're not really having respect for that person because you're doing what you want regardless of what they want. Yes, in many ways, that's exactly what it's doing. It's because this isn't about babying people. This isn't about listening to an immature, unconscious person saying, I don't want to know. Well, that's not your right. Tough. If it affects my freedom, that's not your right. How about that? This is what people who are too, and again, I'll use that term, milquetoast. You're just too passive. You're not aggressive enough. You lay down. When somebody else says, no, I don't want to know about that, you back off immediately. And I'm telling you, that's what's killing the world. That's what has killed the world. Because we're almost dead as it stands right now. And I'm not in any way saying that the caller who brought this topic up is like that by any means. I'm just saying most people, who do know the truth are loath to speak it because it creates uncomfortableness. It creates discomfort among the dynamic that you're involved in. Well, I don't care whether my family will hate me because I want to speak the truth and tell them it's not acceptable that you're not moral enough. It's not acceptable that you accept things that are immoral. Okay? You need to get up in people's face and say it directly to them in plain language. Sugarcoating it is not going to help anybody, folks. It's a new age deception. To say it always has to be worded in the positive, in the affirmative, taking such special care to people's delicate sensibilities and never talking about the negative and never telling them they're inadequate in any way. Absolute bunk, new age nonsense, garbage. Okay? Anybody that buys into that has bought into the New Age religion. Okay? This is about finding the person who is the most influential within any social dynamic group. Okay? You could just think about this on your own. There's a friend that you know who holds more sway with the rest of your friends. There's the person whose mind you have to change. And if what you need to do is get many truth seekers to team up on that person if possible. I've offered to people my time, energy, information, and effort to say, if you have somebody you want to awaken, take me into their presence and we'll work on them together. But plan a day out and we'll just totally, while we're out with that person, we will completely do nothing but speak truth in their presence to a point where they have no choice to listen to us or just absolutely, literally leave the dynamic. Actually have to walk away. That's how you really need to do it. And people will say, oh no, this won't work. It's never been tried. The problem is we've never done this. People who know what's really going on, they back off and they don't say anything to anybody else. And therein lies the bulk of the problem when it comes to order followers. These people are sequestered. They are sequestered. They are walled off from the rest of society. And if you could identify people that are the mavens within their groups, we might be making headway in helping to somewhat transform their behaviors. I call this maven targeting. Okay, and I'll be expanding on it a lot more in the future, in future shows and presentations. Okay, so, you look at order followers, as a brief aside here before we get back to the calls, they constitute a cult. They are people who are completely sequestered from the rest of society. Cops, for example, only hang out with other cops. I know of no person who knows a cop that hangs out with average people, with a normal, everyday person. None. Zero. Never met anybody that hangs out with a cop, ever. Cops hang out with other cops. People who do jobs like being a meter person, like writing tickets. All right, at so-called illegally parked cars. They hang out with their kind because no generally constitute a cult. All order followers really do, and they hang out with only their own kind. They congregate with their own kind, and they are completely sequestered from the rest of society. And that is why, until we can infiltrate that wall, get past that wall that they have used to sequester themselves and basically not hang out with anybody that doesn't think like them. And you need to do that by identifying people within your family dynamic who act as the maven, holding some kind of mental influence with the people who are acting as order followers. And I'm going to tell you, these mavens usually are the matriarchs of the family. Okay? When you look at who people go to for advice within a family unit, you'll usually see it's, the female who is the mature, influential type within the family. Okay? It may be, the grandmother of the family or, just the strong female influence in general. And, in some families it's a male as well. But in general, why I'm going to emphasize the mind control that's perpetuated against women so much in future shows is because for us to break down the dynamic that we see playing out with order followers, the strong-minded and traditional type women are going to have to come out of their mental conditioning that they've been placed under to see, order following as some kind of a virtue, and influence and nurture the men in these families, in the family dynamic that they're a part of, in order to make them understand it's not okay what you're doing, or from a very early age, never get involved in following anybody else's orders because it's immoral from the get-go. And the problem with that is the family dynamic is under attack because of the mind control that women are under. So, it's like a catch-22. Until we can repair that family dynamic by breaking them out of that mind control, they're not going to come out of that mind control. It's a very complicated set of factors that people have to understand is going on. And again, the neo-feminist agenda, which is a eugenics agenda, is a huge part of that mass mind control targeting, particularly of the female mind, because what they want is an emasculated society of